In many ways, Europe seems to be going backwards, both in terms of the physical protection of journalists against violence and against abuses of state authority.
I've received hundreds and hundreds of rape threats, death threats, specific and explicit descriptions of how I should be raped and killed for speaking out about women.
Journalists have a right to investigate, a right to access information, should not be liable for the possession of information, and should not be forced to give out their sources, because then journalism will end.
Journalists play the ever important role in society of letting us know what's going on. If that's being hampered by surveillance, then the whole democratic system starts falling apart.
In Europe, journalists are still killed every year for their work, as in Russia, for instance, and impunity is a fight which needs to be carried out in Russia, in Azerbaijan, in Turkey, in Ukraine, and in other countries of the Council of Europe.
A single round from a US tank fired at the Palestine Hotel in Iraq in April 2003 killed 2 camera operators. The hotel was widely known as being a temporary home to hundreds of foreign media workers. This media worker survived and later made a full recovery. But Ukrainian camera operator Taras Protsyuk, working for Reuters, was killed, and camera operator Jose Cuzo, employed by Spanish broadcaster Telecinco, later died in hospital. In July 2007, above the Iraqi suburb of New Baghdad, one of 2 US Apache helicopters keeps a group of men under surveillance. In the group, Reuters News employees Saeed Chamar and Namir Noor Eldin. The helicopters opened fire, killing about 12 people, including the Reuters men. 2 children were injured in the attack. WikiLeaks, the international online organization which publishes secret information, obtained this video and decrypted it.
Hotel 26, Crazy Horse 1-8, have 5 to 6 individuals with AK-47s. Request permission to engage.
Roger that. We have no personnel east of our position, so you're free to engage, over.
According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, an independent organization promoting press freedom, more journalists were murdered investigating political stories than died in war zones. Most were just doing their jobs in their home countries.
In Turkey, you see a large number of journalists in jail on defamation against the state and also anti-terrorism. Similarly, in Russia and elsewhere, you see both violence and you see legal threats, judicial harassment against journalists on a very large scale.
Turkey is nowadays the biggest jail for journalists in the world. It's a member of the Council of Europe. As of today, no less than 60 journalists are in jail in this country, among which at least 30 are jailed in direct relation with their journalism.
Besides having their lives or their liberty taken away, journalists and other media workers are also facing a 21st century phenomenon: online intimidation.
I think particularly female journalists, women like me writing online, and I know it's not just me, I know other women in this area have told me very similar experiences, that I've received hundreds and hundreds of rape threats, death threats, specific and explicit descriptions of how I should be raped and killed for speaking out about women. So there are those downsides and challenges, but I also think that there's an enormous amount of positivity for women in new media. There's the fact that social media allows us to harness the power of women and to create collaborative action.
Another digital dilemma for journalists is how to protect information, how to keep it safe from being monitored or intercepted.
What we're discovering, and very much thanks to the work of Edward Snowden, is that governments have asked companies to build backdoors or to reduce the security of their products so that governments can listen in or intercept. And we're also discovering that governments are actually intercepting at a higher level, say in undersea cables, or they're even hacking telephone companies and hacking databases of companies in order to gather intelligence. So what we need is transparency about the relationships between companies and governments, but also transparency about government powers.
Yes, the state can, in moments of crisis and for special needs, access information from individuals. But there has to be a due process of law. There has to be a democratic procedure, the same way it was done before with telephone conversations. It has to be done with a court order. And I believe that the best societies is where there's a double standard of supervision, a judiciary process and a parliamentary process of oversight. And this is what guarantees that it will not be abused, because the problem is that we should never allow any state for the political power and the executive branch per se to make those decisions, and much less the security agencies or the intelligence agencies to decide by themselves who they can monitor or what information they can monitor or who has dangerous information that they can withdraw. This is the breaking of our democratic system.
When legitimate journalistic work is impaired, when journalists are forced to hand over sources, when their telecommunications and their email are tapped, not because of a major national security question, but because of inconvenience or embarrassment for governments, then we should all be concerned.
More and more states in all parts of Europe, but not only the East, but also in the West, the governments are assuming more powers. They're trying to override the international norms and standards in the name of national security, public security, and so on. This is leading to a great deal of unhappiness and dismay among the human rights community, among lawyers connected with the European Court of Human Rights, and there is a general sense that Europe is moving backwards on human rights and protection of freedom of expression unless the ministers show real determination and real action.